Here we are, punters, for part two. And last week I talked a bit about a couple of books. I've got a new one. Wife got this one for me. It's Board Odds I Lay. Nice bookies bag there on the back. It's story of Victorian bookmakers over a long period of time, so I look forward to having a read of that. I've already had a flick through it. I saw there's a good bit there on Brian Mann, so I might have to get Paddy Bet and Brian to autograph it for me at the risk of devaluing a perfectly good book, but yeah, I'm sure they'll be happy to pop an autograph on there for me. Talking about books, so last week I mentioned about Bill Waterhouse saying, you know, if you're having a rough trot, you've got to stick to your process, only make minor alterations, and work hard at what you know works, and just keep working at it, and when it turns, you'll feel like you're not going to lose again. So now, in response to that, our good friend, good man Juppy, we all miss Juppy. Juppy's down there in Bendigo these days, and he's written me an email, and he's basically asking, how do you assess the line pots between sticking to your process, understanding what's variance, and also recognising when your edge is eroded? So I think, Juppy, the answer to that question is really that edges are developed through hard work. So whether that's walking the track, assessing all the prices of horses and doing an accurate set of probabilities, speed maps, whatever your edge might be, and in your case, going out and watching pre-season games of WNBL and getting an edge that way, and knowing which players have moved from what teams to another, and having a real edge because you can have a better handle on those teams before the price assessors do. It's knowing where the edge comes from. Now, you can either do that hard work yourself, or you can pay someone else to do it for you, but you need to know that that hard work's being done. So if you're paying someone else, you have to trust them. And I would say, Juppy, that I know we've talked a lot about how you bet on some of that things you do, and where you're concerned about the edge being eroded, I would think you're sort of referring to some of the computer model based stuff that you've been involved with over the years. And I think that's a very tough space. It's very competitive. There are a lot of smart people constantly developing and redeveloping new and improved models on whether it's various sports and racing. And if that's the space you're operating in, it's a constant process of renewal, finding edges, having them eroded, because it's such a competitive space. So I just think you really have to be honest with yourself about what you're betting on, where the edge comes from, and if you do that and you analyse it, in the real cold light of day, and you can't be sure there's an edge there, I think you should delete it from your portfolio. So, really comes down to, in that when you're sitting down thinking about it yourself, and you're saying, where is the edge in these bets? And if you don't know the answer to that question, you shouldn't be betting on it. I think that's the best answer I can give you, mate. Where are we? I also had an email from Ray. Ray's a good man, regular subscriber, writes to me about lots of stuff. Now, he sent me an email with a few different questions in it. One I'll email you privately, Ray. But the other, he was just asking me when we had DK on recently. DK was talking about his lunch with Jelko, and Ray was asking where Jelko bets, and does he bet fixed odds, tab, all that sort of stuff. So, and Jelko is deliberately called the mystery man for a reason. He likes to keep extremely private. He doesn't like anyone knowing what he's doing. Because he's so big, certain information does leak out there, and there's a big team of people that work there and have worked there and so forth. But basically, the best answer I can give you, Ray, is he bets anywhere where he can get on big bets late, and there's no issue with settling. So he bets all over the world, not just Australia, in racing, sports, everything. So anywhere where he can get on bets at the size he wants, and there's no settling issues, they're involved. And that includes lottos and all sorts of things. Anywhere they identify an edge, and it's a mathematical edge with them, it's all about maths, that's where they participate. Oh, yeah, Ray also asked about the mounting yard. So good question, Ray, and what impact that has on my betting. You know, I'm not a mounting yard specialist. I've just got, you know, I've talked to some really good people over the years that are, and they've explained certain things to me. So I look at the, you know, I suppose they're fairly obvious things, and I talk regularly to a guy that looks at the horses on course after the meeting, and I, you know, keep notes on certain horses. But primarily for me, I'm looking for horses that have paraded badly and done things that don't help in a race at all, and then they subsequently turn up at a later date and parade much better and conserve their energy and give themselves an opportunity to produce better than they have previously. So I'll give you a perfect example. A horse, Santa Ana Lane. He's always been a very highly strung, nervous horse, and he has consistently worked himself into a frazzle in the mounting yard. Sweating up really badly behind, just shaking his head around, just on his toes, just, you know, expending a lot of nervous energy pre-race. Now, in his recent Group 1 win, now I marked him $16, right? Because he was coming off a very good run at Moonee Valley behind Brave Smash, where he paraded typically poorly like he does. Now, so he was a hard horse to me to put on the betting plan, but he was a horse I was watching. He walked into the mounting yard and he was nowhere near as bad as he normally is. Now, compared to the other horses, he didn't parade particularly well, but for himself, he paraded the best he's ever paraded. So I, you know, I sent that message to a few key people that I talked to on the day, and most of us backed him at the big odds. So, look, it's one of those situations that doesn't happen that often, but you know, there is opportunities there. Now, my personal betting, if I see a horse parading terribly that doesn't normally parade badly, yes, I might lay a bit of it back and minimise my position on that horse and pay a bit of a fine. But it's minor tinkering. I don't do massive amounts of it, and it's usually only one, maybe two horses a week, Ray, to be honest. So it's not a huge part of my betting, but it is something I look at and try to take note of. And like I said, I talked to a guy after the races to sort of ask him about horses, particularly ones that have paraded badly or ones that have paraded really well, and just try and use that when I'm doing my post-race assessment. Where are we? What else have we got here? I had an email a while ago. I've constantly forgot to bring it up. So it's from Tony. He was talking about staking. So he'd basically gone to the website, my website, looked at the results, and, you know, copied the spreadsheet and made an assessment of what would happen if you tinkered with the staking plan. And basically what Tony did was almost turn it upside down, where the stronger bets on the shorter price runners, he made them smaller bets, and the horses outside the market, maybe in the $8 to $12 range, he made them bigger bets. So and it increased the profit on return dramatically. So it's an interesting concept. The problem is that if you start, particularly if you're betting early in the market, if you start having bigger bets on those out of the market horses, you'll decimate the value in them, and it'll be very hard to get all of your bets set at that big price. And you know, you're taking a fairly small sample, because those results on the website start in June, so that would have been June through the end of August or something that Tony was looking at. And it might just be a period where horses in that price range have performed particularly well. But look, you know, can you take my stuff and come up with a different method of staking and, you know, increase the turnover and get more profit out of it? Sure, like, you probably can. So I'm happy with how I do things. But if people want to do that sort of thing, it's not something I would necessarily recommend. But I wouldn't say that you couldn't do better than how it's presented. So thought-provoking email though, Tony, so I appreciate it. I just thought we couldn't let the show go without making mention of Matt Stewart's assessment of Winks. And so tipping Humidor to beat Winks, that's not a big deal. So what? Who cares? You know, really. The problem is that all the assessment and the articles prior that where his complete lack of understanding that she's racing in as good a form as she's ever raced in. You could make the case easily that she's in career best form. And even though she won a couple of races in Sydney by fairly small margins, if you break those races down, it was obvious, you know, particularly the way I do things, it was extremely obvious that she was in career best form. It was very easy to mark her shorter than $1.20 on Saturday, and I don't often bet at short odds, but I was just happy to steam right into her at $1.25, and God bless those that were willing to lay her. So in the end, people like Matt, he gives himself up for his lack of depth in the analysis he does, and I think I personally have nothing against the bloke. My problem is with those that give him a platform to sprout, or to talk to punters with such misinformation. That just, I suppose in a way we should be glad, because it helps make the market, but you know, he's given a license to tip on the radio when it's obvious that there's no depth in the work that he does. There's just none. Zero. Anyway, that's all I've got to say on that matter. I think that'll probably do us for this week, punters. Interesting week ahead. I'll be doing the Bendigo meeting on Wednesday. Looking forward to a huge meeting at Caulfield on Saturday. It'll be great. So, for my subscribers, last week I got out to Moonee Valley and did a quick track video on Moonee Valley. I won't be able to do that this Friday because I'll be attending a charity function as part of the panel. I think Richo's the host there with Darren Weirs on it, and I'll be involved. So it's for the it's called the Grassroots Foundation. They raise money for kids trying to buying them equipment for sports and that sort of thing. So that'll be on Friday. And again, just to mention the Spring Carnival package, the 7 meetings I mentioned before. So what you get is the link to the track walking video that I do for all the metropolitan meetings, full set of prices, maps, the key runner comments, and the betting plan. And you'll get 7 sets for the price of 6. So anyone that's interested in that, just shoot me a contact via the webpage, and I'll shoot you an invoice and we can sort it all out that way. So looking forward to a great spring ahead, punters. I hope we get plenty out of it, and can't wait. Cheers, punters.